Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion and educational program titled The Rise of the Entrepreneurial Journalist, Rethinking Media Careers in a Changing World by the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the USA. I'm Stephanie Ochoa. I am honored to guide today's conversation. I am a White House correspondent with Entravision. I cover for more than 20 of our local stations across the country, reporting for Hispanic audience and also Univision affiliates. Well, as we all know, journalism is undergoing one of its most profound transformations, driven by technology, evolving audience habits, and the urgent need of sustainable business models. Amid these shifts, entrepreneurial journalism has emerged not just as a survival tactic, but as a thriving space of creativity, impact, and independence. Today, we are privileged to hear from two outstanding leaders who have built careers at the intersection of journalism and innovation. They have each launched ventures that challenge traditional models and open new paths for storytelling, engagement, and community building. Our discussion will explore how journalists can think like entrepreneurs, what it takes to launch and sustain independent media projects, and how innovation is reshaping the future of the industry. We'll begin with some guided questions and the open to the floor with eventual questions that you can write in this video for further response. So please, let's start with our panelist. Dr. Nils Högsdal is a professor of corporate finance and entrepreneurship at Stuttgart Media University and has served as vice president for innovation since 2016. He supports research, entrepreneurship transfer, and professional programs at the university. Högsdal is passionate about teaching entrepreneurship and actively involved in the regional startup ecosystem as an expert advisor, mentor, and investor. Together with his team, he founded the Academic Seed Accelerator program, supporting over 1,000 university-based startup ideas. An entrepreneurship educator by heart, he has also organized the International Entrepreneurship Education Summit since 2016. As well, we have Branagan. He is the director of the Center for Digital Media Entrepreneurship at the University of Syracuse. He established the Center for Digital Media Entrepreneurship in 2011. The center offers courses, coaching, and connections to encourage students to start media ventures of all kinds, to engage Newhouse alumni in tech and media startups, and build connections with emerging media and tech ventures worldwide. Today, he is co-founder and chair of Scrappy Capital, a seed fund that invests in startups in rising cities. He also coaches and advises numerous startups and venture funds. A graduate of the Newhouse School in 1980 with a degree in magazine, Shen has started lifestyle businesses, small businesses, and high-tech companies. He has several media and creative entrepreneurship outreach programs. Branagan was a 2020 recipient of a Fulbright grant in media entrepreneurship and innovation, working to build the creator economy in Estonia and helping 8 universities across the European Union to establish media entrepreneurship programs. He is working to democratize entrepreneurship and expand creator economy opportunities throughout Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe, and in underserved communities in the US. Branagan is a broad member of the Association for Foreign Press Correspondents, USA, and holds official advisory board positions with several early-stage media and tech startups. Syracuse University created and featured Branagan's My Syracuse University Story on social media in 2024. So I really appreciate that you are joining us today. And I want to start with a few questions because It sounds beautiful. It sounds exciting when we read all what you have done in these years, but it is not that easy. So I would like to start with Sean, um, getting his general thoughts about how's media right now in this evolving moment, um, crucial times also for the entire world. And how do you see this business evolving right now?
Thanks, Stephanie, and thanks for that long introduction. Basically, the summary is I'm old. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to do a lot of interesting things. This is a critical time for journalism in general. I think uh, foreign press correspondents, and this is a wonderful panel for the Association for Foreign Press Correspondents in the U.S. because it's getting interesting is a nice way to put it. And independence and ethics still drive what needs to be done in journalism. And I think that that may actually be easier to do as an independent than it is as part of corporate media. So where are things going? I think I would say uh, there is already a move inside of corporate media that independence is starting to take hold among journalists, that they are standing up and saying, wait, we should cover this, or no, we didn't cover that properly or enough. And they now have access to things that used to be scarce. It used to be big media companies owned the towers and the studios and the mechanisms of distribution, and now they're at everybody's fingertips. So that changes it. And over the last 15 years, I've got to say, a slap down on journalism is that they didn't join the party early enough. And thankfully now they're there.
And Sean, when we think about starting something by our own, then we are also facing all the challenges of new reporters and communicators working on social media. So now it's not only going in a parallel way than the traditional media, but also everything that is happening on different platforms in a digital world. So when you talk about being independent, what would it be your best advice to those who want to start in that path to work in a different way that what we've seen on digital media, social media, YouTube channels, podcasts, TikTok? What is your advice?
Well, if you're working somewhere in a media company as a journalist, whether small or big, as long as if it's established, I would spend time, a lot of time, gigging, just doing other work outside of your normal business. I know we all are busy and we say, oh, but I don't have the time. Well, if it's important, you find the time. I think that we find that with human beings invariably. When it becomes important, they find time. I say get up an hour early, stay up an hour later. It adds up. And I would get on these platforms. You mentioned them as social media, and the truth is they're less and less social. They're just media. They have recommendation engines rather than I'm seeing what my friends see. That was the olden days of social media when it was social. Now it's a media platform, and you can go out and don't look at it as, oh, how do I make money doing this? If I were to tell a journalist, I would say, how do you get the parts of the story out that you couldn't, or you were limited on, or you had a passion for, but nobody else maybe had that passion, and see if there's a audience for that. Audience, in the case of digital platforms, is market. Unlike when you do in a traditional advertising supported media operation, audience is the product. You find the audience and then you sell that to the advertiser. And that is a triangulated market. I know Nils is going to get into this as on the business side. A triangulated market invariably has issues of balance and ethics because it's triangulated. When it's one-to-one, you have maybe not less of those issues, but they're more upfront and transparent. So maybe that's a setup for you, Nils.
I just want to share a story because I talked at the conference with someone who's a musician and an entrepreneur and a researcher. And we did a project more than 10 years ago educating musicians how they could generate additional revenue streams. Because traditionally, being a musician is a gig economy. You might be booked for a season, you might be booked for a musical, it might be 2 seasons. But yeah, you always should think what your next step is, your next move. And secondly, you also want to have a few things happening on the side. And that project back then identified more than 40 additional revenue streams for musicians, from teaching classes, via doing things on the side for advertising, via doing your YouTube channel and everything. Similar story, yoga instructors. Some are poor and some build a business around their yoga instructability. And by selling merchandise, by doing classes online, by providing great videos, by having a platform you can sign on everything. And I think that's so important. As a journalist, you should think you have a lot of, and that's a good thing. It's easy to create your own brand. So creating your own brand, I think that's always the first step. And that's the moment you bring in, for example, LinkedIn. So there's this great science journalist in Germany called Jan Viada. He has more than 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. And he created
LinkedIn
those
is it.
followers. Yeah.
LinkedIn is it, Nils.
Seriously. And I think that's the first step you really need to do is create your own brand as a journalist. And then people connect you with certain things. And then, yeah, it's easy to get side businesses. You might be asked to be a moderator of maybe some award ceremony if you're in the business world or if you're in the entertainment world. People might actually bring you in to do media training. People might actually ask you as an editor. Maybe you're being asked if you could do whatever, an editorial for a corporate magazine, and. But really getting started. So step one for a journalist, you are your own brand. And the moment, and I got to know someone in San Luis Obispo, and he was for more than 10 years the host of the local radio station. And then he, well, got fired. And he's happier than ever before. He's running 2 different wine blogs because he was always passionate about wine. And he's doing some other things on the side. So again, step one, create your own brand. And that way you're really able to do additional things with your knowledge, with your resources, with your own audience. And again, 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. We can do the value of that. And people love to hear the insight. So if you're the journalist covering the university space, or let's say university strategy, hey, guess how many people there are not only in the US, but around the world. I care what's happening at American universities. And I got scared. I was at a conference last week and attendance was 50% of what it usually is. So something is happening in the American education system right now, Sean.
It is a worrisome time.
Yeah.
And that's interesting when you mention LinkedIn, for example, because when we imagine a project that we're gonna start by ourselves as a reporter with no resources in terms of like equipment or like all what media requires to do a good job, you immediately feel limited. But when you mention LinkedIn, it sounds like it's not that complicated. I mean, when we start thinking about our own project, it's not about something massive. We can start with that. But there's also another component, time. How long it takes to start working on a good brand, because that's true. We are covering news every single day, so the cycle is very fast. And it's very easy to be, like get fed up with the process and say like, this is taking too long, I need to get something faster. But I think that's also a component that it's important to keep in mind.
Journalists have one great thing. They do own good content. And obviously, if you use AI to produce content, it becomes very generic. And people see that still. But if it's your original content, and let's say you have written that piece of article, you have created something else, you're taking that transcript, take our interview right now. If you have that transcript, it takes you 2 minutes to turn it into a meaningful LinkedIn post. And that's the magic.
I'm gonna add to where you were going with LinkedIn. I think what journalists and a lot of people do is they give reasons they can't. And that is, Nils gets this too. The number one reason people don't start anything is fear of failing. So our natural inclination is to say, oh, well, I don't have the right camera and I'm not able to, I need an editor. Okay, these are maybe truths, but chances are they're really just excuses. My dad used to say, recognize the difference between reasons and excuses, and you'll be fine. We have lots of excuses and very few reasons. LinkedIn, are you able to log onto it? Yeah, you are tonight. And so why don't you post it like Nils said, right away? Substack, people say, well, I don't understand it. Okay, well, that's on you. That's not Substack's problem. You go into Substack and in 15 minutes you go, oh, I get this. It's like my content management system at the newspaper. And you have insights, Stephanie. You said you were, did you say you're a White House reporter? Yeah, so you see things that other people don't see. And I know there is professional courtesy and you don't overstep the lines and you don't talk about that. Okay, I'm going to tell you, screw that. That's where the interest is. So I would say that's the unique access that you have that you can leverage right now without having to say, oh, I need this and this and this. You have this other thing that has enormous value that not many people have at all. And I would say that's maybe where you begin. Look at your interests and your skills and then see where is your opportunity. The opportunity generally is right in front of you. That would be what I would do if I were you.
It's already really the audience. So, hey, that one thing is LinkedIn, and it's currently the only social media platform I'm really using.
Yep.
But I heard there's something called TikTok. And hey, there are people who created doing interesting video clips, short to the point, but take your example. Yeah, if you would create linked about interesting things about the White House, no one knows. Again, obviously, you don't want to go into the bedroom of the president, but again, I'm sure there's cool stuff which makes easy 30-second video clips.
Right.
And you create followers with that if you do the right way.
Right.
Well, you're setting me up here, Nils. I'm going to talk about a student of mine. She was a local reporter, so journalist, and was really not feeling like she was covering meaningful stuff. And she started using TikTok and posting things on that and on YouTube just on the side because she was on the spot. Most of the time that she would be waiting to get on camera, et cetera, she had extra time and she would take little bits. She got contacted by, or she applied for a job with the Washington Post, and now she's part of the TikTok team at the Washington Post. And she is doing journalism in TikTok, and she's doing it with large audience impact. So it's very short information and large audience impact. Sound familiar? It sounds like TV to me. That is what TikTok offers, and it also gives her and the Washington Post a platform to reach a much larger audience than they were before, and a completely different audience. Those are the kinds of opportunities journalists can find if they just move outside of the norm.
And I want to tell a couple of the ideas that you have just mentioned, because maybe this is, and I'm speaking as a reporter. Maybe I'm coming from a very old school way to learn how to do journalism. So for me, even though I tried to get into TikTok and there were a couple of videos that were very good in views, I end up feeling that TikTok was not the professional platform for doing real journalism. I felt that I was transiting from like covering the White House to posting something in TikTok. I wasn't sure if that was professional or if I would reach the right audience instead of just posting content that people will scroll down through and just not paying attention to that. But the valuable content, do you think it's also what people are looking for? Because it's very easy to just send a video that is going to become viral about, let's say, a local reporter about an accident on the street, and everybody will look at it. But do you think people are still looking for something more valuable?
I think you have to be consistent. So before it was called TikTok, it was Musical.ly. That was the first time I really looked at that channel. And I said back then to our vice president at our university, hey, we should look at that. And
yeah,
said,
Musical.ly was a US company too, not a Chinese company. A Chinese company bought Musical.ly and made TikTok.
And in those days, there was this one dentist, and she created a large audience, but she kept to her theme. I'm a dentist, I'm explaining how brace, whatever. And back then, the colleague said, that's 14-year-olds. I said, yeah, but they'll be 18 eventually, and then they will be applying for universities. Why not explain how to get in a university and all that stuff? We never did it, but there's this German lawyer, and he started early on to explain certain things about law. That's about grading, what's okay about applications, creating those short clips. He stick to his point. It's always about legal issues, aimed at his audience, explaining things. Yes, I don't get my numbers, but it's well in the 6 digits number of followers he has. So he created this brand, but you have to be consistent. And I'm sure the moment he covers that school bus accident, it's not going to help him.
Right.
Yeah.
And let me add to that is there's a thing called, and it's hashtag book talk, where it's TikTok people who talk about books. And the publishing industry realizes this isn't, they look at it almost as marketing. And I think it's a weak way of looking at it. It's people talking about things that are interesting. And TikTok, I believe, is probably the greatest audience development tool we've ever seen. It's not viral. We talk about viral. It's not. It's a recommendation engine, and it finds people who are interested in these topics, and it puts them together in really interesting ways. And so it will find its audience instead of you have to find it. It's the difference between marketing and pulling it into the market. It's pulled into the market. And to Nils' point about the dentist and the lawyer, actually, the more niche and more specialized, the more likely it'll find an audience. And it doesn't need to find a massive audience, especially if you can say, and then come over to my Substack where we do longer form versions of this information, or, here's my book, or here's a show we have on YouTube. You don't have to ask permission for any of these things, and you can just go multi-platform as a journalist.
Do you think there's a decline of the traditional news outlets or different platforms? I've heard so many times about newspapers disappearing. I still see them being printed, maybe less than in the past, but they are still there. But that's one thing. And the second thing is people probably trust less on traditional media than in the past. And maybe that's one of the reasons why different platforms have been very successful with it, because people don't find them identified with what they are reading in traditional media. How do you see the traditional media right now?
If you look, and again, I don't have numbers for the US, but if you look at the typical newspaper, so I've finally canceled my last newspaper subscription earlier this year in January, because I was no longer seeing the added value of the printed newspaper.
What was the publication, Nils? Yeah. Was it a Stuttgart paper, or was it a?
It was actually the local newspaper, so really the real local newspaper covering my small village in the city of Tübingen and the university. But I'm actually paying the same amount of money now for different platforms, like their online services, and the same for the Stuttgart newspaper. So I used to, and again, I'm spending about $40 to $50 a month on access to those platforms. So I'm no longer reading that printed newspaper, which comes to me in the morning, but I'm accessing all this information. And that's one way how people are using it in a different way. Now, again, this is making journalism digital. And I've seen the numbers for some newspaper, and we are at the tipping point, at least in Germany, that newspaper by newspaper, online subscription revenue is actually surpassing revenue from printed newspapers.
That's true.
Yeah. And that's sort of the thing. And that opens new opportunities. And again, take that thing. You are the journalist, and you have just written that feature on that local startup. Yeah, go on LinkedIn, tag those people. They will like you, they will share it. Maybe 2/3 of the article are behind the paywall. On the other hand, maybe the first access is free of charge, so people will actually read that thing. It will actually also help the newspaper get more readers on that thing. So again, step one is really promoting your own content, promoting you as a brand, sharing a few things, and that's the first opportunity. And the other thing which is happening, newspapers are sometimes failing to cover certain things. So just make up this example, former student of mine, he used to work for the automotive industry. And he is now writing as a consultant articles, insights about the automotive industry. Very detailed. And he is now actually at the point that he has the standard newsletter, and then he has the paid version of his the paid version of the newsletter. And he is already up to 1,000 people paying him. And it's only a few $1 per month. But again, he is creating content inside the automotive industry. Well, the 5-digit number of followers, but more and more people are actually going for the premium version with more background information, with more detail and everything. So, and he was never a journalist. He was a consultant for the automotive industry.
Which is big in Stuttgart.
Yeah. I got another guy. He's crazy. He's doing videos about fast and loud cars.
Wow.
And they actually, it's car manufacturers now hiring them when they bring this high-end, whatever, RS6 Audi version with like the 600 horsepower version. He's making those that treat him like a journalist. It's actually the other way around. So companies are paying him to create those videos and share those videos.
And I think you have mentioned artificial intelligence. That's an amazing tool that we have right now. We have ChatGPT. You can pay for it every month. That can make your life easier. If you could mention a couple of AI tools that we can use for that, which of those are your favorites?
You want to go first, Nils?
But I think that obviously the most, if you want to create additional content around the things you're doing anyway, the most obvious is ChatGPT. It's a standard. The premium version is pretty cheap to use. The graphic abilities have gotten amazing. And the cool thing is you can create your own GPT. So I have uploaded some of my work. And it's helping me to do summaries using my language. I'm telling them, look, I've just read the thesis. This is my takeaway from the thesis. Use those 20 points I found and now create a draft for review of that thing. And then I do some editing. And I think that's, as a journalist, you have so much content. You can train your own GPTs to start out with. So it's really your language. That's the first step. And then whenever you create some content, say, look, that's my content I've just created. Please help me to prepare a LinkedIn post. I want to stress the following 5 points. And chances are that's already 80 to 90% of the work you want to do. Maybe you want to create some cool graphics. That's this one guy, Philip, who's this automotive consultant. All of his visuals are always created using artificial intelligence. And it really helps him that people recognize him. So again, that's definitely step number 1, is that kind of tool. I know different startups, and they can actually create all content and turn into a podcast. And more and more
actually, I'll use that as my jumping off point. I am not a ChatGPT. I think it's too general.
Yeah.
For writing, I would recommend Claude. For search, I would recommend Perplexity.
Yeah.
And then long ago, I made a decision, rather than have all of my materials off in different places, I said, I'm going to give to Google. I like them as a company. I know they've made some errors. So have I. So don't hold me up only by my errors. Hold me up by my successes and my errors. I think they try really hard as a company, and they succeed most of the time. But I am on GPS, Google Maps, Google Drive. I have all my materials already in the Google world. And then along comes Gemini. And Gemini is now working with my permission off of my information, much like Nils had, only I didn't have to feed it, it had it. And I'm astounded by Gemini as a researcher. It's almost my morning talk. I go and say, hi, Gemini. I don't literally do that yet. I have my phone upstairs where I will be doing that on the device on a Google Pixel, where I will be saying, I'm going to have a conversation with my researcher, basically, for whatever it is moves me that morning. This morning's conversation, I did it as well. Tell me a little bit about journalism and entrepreneurship. Just give it to them blank. Then say, oh, dig down into this. And as a researcher, you're looking at information that is, just like any researcher, I have grad assistants, they miss it. They get it wrong. And that's good as part of the learning curve for them. I think we need to start looking at these generative AIs as I call them OIs. Like I had children that are all grown right now, and I call them my organic intelligence. And we don't get mad at them when they get things wrong. We teach them and we learn from it. We learn, oh, wow, I didn't even think of it that way. And that, I think, is what we need to do. And journalists in particular, I would recommend them do with these generative AIs, is know that they're learning. And that's part of, they will learn better when you participate. They will learn less when you step out. So step in. And then another tool I'll give, and it's in the swirl of Google, is one that Nils talked about, which is Notebook. Is it Notebook LM or Notebook ML? I think it's Notebook LM. Notebook LM. And what you would do with Notebook LM is you could feed it information and it will generate a podcast. Right.
That's fantastic.
A synthesized interviewer, or it could be a synthesized version of me on what it is we have here, and it would regenerate that. And then you could interrogate it to say, check that, check this, like a journalist. That's what's required here. But then on top of it, you can, as we're seeing more of these generative AI tools, where you can interrogate portions of its output and not just say, is that accurate, but say, oh, zoom in on this, or give me a graphic on this, or can you work this into, which is exactly what an editor would do in a journalistic environment. So I would look at that kind of tool along with things like Claude, which is a good writing tool, as a way to improve your language, and then go cross-language. I'm from New York, New Jersey area. I barely speak English. So the idea that I could have my output be in multiple languages is not only possible, it's almost easy right now. And then I can have a natural language speaker look it over to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. More and more, I think you're going to find they're going to give it a thumbs up. Like, this is incredibly good. So.
Well, I think this is very useful, and I'm actually writing it down because it's very motivating to listen to you talking about these successful stories. But I will also talk about those who haven't been successful. Like, it's very easy to quit because we get stressed. We say, like, okay, I've been persistent for 2 or 3 months. I don't see any progress. This is not for me. Maybe for me as a reporter on camera, it's easier to go on videos. But those who are coming from newspaper, it's more difficult to transit to videos or TikTok or YouTube. But what are those mistakes that you regularly see on people who are trying to start their own branding and diversifying their job?
Can I take that one first? Because I work with journalists who are starting businesses. I think the biggest, to me, most obvious mistake, and I think it's not obvious to them, is they try to recreate the job they just lost or they just left. That's not paying attention to the market that just told them to leave. So they're trying to recreate their past. That's not innovative. It's not also a good path to whatever the future is by going to the past. So I would say unpack it. What is it that you did? What did you love? What did you not love? And then repackage it, not recreate it, repackage it. And that can mean a whole lot of things. Some of the ones that Nils was talking about, where you're, so a journalist is a writer, to your question, and they don't want to get into video. Great, then don't. Then be on a long form or short form. Be both. maybe get somebody else who does the video, maybe get an AI who's going to do a generated version of you, which may be better on camera than actual real you, or the reverse. Somebody is good on camera, use those skills, lean into those skills, and then also go a little bit off of what was standard practice. I'm at the media school, the Newhouse School at Syracuse University, and we have all sorts of media people in all spectrums of entertainment and journalism and in the marketing, advertising, and public relations. And everybody is learning what is to be a professional. And I said, that's an established, soon to be obsolete set of standards. And you say, well, you have to light it this way. And so I give this one as my moment of why is traditional media not trusted? Well, because the person who's on camera has had hair and makeup. They have, in some cases, a clothing allowance. They then get on camera where there were 15 to 20 minutes of getting ready, and then they're shot with a professional person shooting them, and then they're wondering why people think they're inauthentic. And meanwhile, over in the user-generated world of news, it's somebody shooting it on their phone at the situation, and they have a higher trust level. And it's because they look like us. They sound like us. They're like us. And we've, in many ways, I think journalism has lost its way in this regard, because it's so packaged and so prepared, and that becomes the professional standard. And I think this is where an independent journalist can say, let's look at those professional standards and which ones fit the audience, fit this channel. So YouTube and TikTok, totally different animals. So you need to fit what fit in those channels. Those would be the kinds of things I would look at. Take your skills, but then bring them in a new way to undo the standards.
That's great. Nils, what about you?
Well, first of all, I think if you go back in history, you have always had failed journalists. Some are very successful independent journalists, but at least in Germany, we used to have those independent journalists in the 1980s who would write for 12 cents per line in the local newspaper. I was a student in high school doing exactly that.
Oh, really?
The first money I made was writing about local clubs and stuff like that. And so that stuff, the real journalists on the payroll would not cover because it was a waste of their time. That's where they would send the students out. And then you would make the equivalent of nowadays $8-9 for maybe a third of a page. And if you took a picture, you actually got more money. So we have had that in the past. People didn't make the money. The retired people who made it on the side and everything. And again, I'm sure for one independent journalist who really made a living, there were 9 others. It was just also a gig economy. So that's something new. That's something I think we've always had. Now, the thing is, first recommendation, don't wait until it's too late, which means I would always have some stuff happening on the side. Make sure, again, you can't expect loyalty from the big news houses. Owners might change. They might just have to close something down because of financial considerations. There might be nowadays political implications and. So again, don't wait. You are your own brand. Work on that brand from day one. Use your LinkedIn channel or TikTok channel or whatever. Inform people. Do something for the audience. Connect with those people. And I think that's number one. Secondly, what I really tell our students, and that's something I've learned from someone else, advertising as such is not a business model. It's one stream of revenue. So don't rely, people think, oh yeah, if I get enough followers, enough clicks, I will get advertising. Same story, how many musicians really live from the streaming revenue they create on Netflix? Nowadays, you make the money on concerts, you work as an author maybe on the side, you create some great talks, you maybe train people in certain aspects, maybe you have that paid subscription of your newsletter. So I think that's something, think about potential revenue streams. I had a student a while ago for a thesis reviewing the revenue streams of the 100 top influencers in Germany. And again, advertising is just a small portion. Some sell products. Hey, maybe you are into camping and you have this great camping blog. You're covering the camping industry. Oh yeah, once in a while you will show new products. Guess what? You can make money on people buying those products. You do product reviews. Do that link, even if it's just the Amazon link. Maybe you find some other partners. Again, do workshops. I have this one colleague of mine, very interesting experiment. We got this great company in our area called Ritter Sport, High-End Chocolate. He's a former journalist. He just
Oh, I didn't know that.
He just wrote a story as a novel. Not
Ritter
on
Sport
the
chocolate
company.
is great, by the way, Stephanie.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I'm gonna try it.
That book is now the number 3 best-selling book in Germany as we talk. And he wrote that book about the lady who actually founded that company more than 120 years ago. And again, you get the idea. They have now, and he's now going out reading, and he has established himself as someone who can write content for companies. I'm sure there are 10, 15 other companies lined up who want their own corporate story now in a comparable book. So again, get the idea, get out, ask for the money, look for multiple revenue streams. Again, advertising is one revenue stream. It's not a business model. And yeah, don't be afraid of asking for money. That's the thing we learned about the music teachers. They are always afraid of asking for money when they have done the training. Ask for the money. And people, oh yeah, I'm willing to pay. In the beginning, I'm willing to pay $1 or $2 per month or do like a one-time donation of $20 because this is a great blog. I want to say thank you for all those insights.
And I think that's a very important part of all these ideas, because sometimes we don't know how to get the money. It's a question of the $1 million. We want the money, we just don't know how to get it. And so you have just told us advertising is not the best way. There are some other ways you can find some revenue doing what you're doing. And how did you find the balance between the payment that you're getting, but also not crossing the line to be unprofessional? Or yeah, I mean, maybe you are giving the news and I'm wearing a dress for whatever brand.
But be very straightforward, be honest, and say, look, I got invited by that car manufacturer to write about that new car. It's okay. Yeah. Or if you have that link, hey, we're getting a referral commission from Amazon. This is helping us to pay for this blog. So I think the most important thing is always be open, be honest. I'm just talked to a journalism professor at Cal Poly. She's doing what Sean is doing at Syracuse at Cal Poly. And she had just an issue with one of her students who didn't reveal her association. And she wanted to cover that a certain organization and a certain theme, even though she's actively involved in that thing. Hey, that's a conflict of interest. And I think that's the same thing. You need to be very open, very frank. And then people don't mind if you take that guy with his 2 wine blogs. Yeah, obviously, when he's talking about the wine, he will make money when people order that wine. But he won't lie about the quality of the wine. People trust him. That's, I think, the stronger thing. And guess what? I don't mind if he gets a 5 or 10% commission if I've learned about this great bottle of wine from him. So I think
I would add to what Nils is saying, the transparency side. But I'm gonna push back on journalists who say, well, I can just be a journalist and I don't have to deal with this. Yeah, and you leaving it to somebody else in the back office to decide if we're going to have this advertiser on our platform, in our publication, on our show, and you have no say on it and the established thing. And that makes you feel good. But I don't think that it should make all of us feel good. The idea that it is backed by something that isn't consistent with values, I'm going to tell you, when you run your own show, it's all about ethics and values. And I have this whole bit that I say to students when they say, oh, money is bad, money is the root of all evil, they should know it's a misquote. The quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil, and that relationship to money is the key. And the idea that you can then balance between good and better and alignment and where you will do business and where you won't do business is a business person's ethical drive. And you need to be in the business side of it if you really want to make a difference in the world. Be a journalist, telling us about these issues, but also acting on them, because you are driving your business forward with these consistently, not, oh, I sold out. Okay, you sold out. We're all going to know about it. You're probably going to be less trusted, and you're deservingly less trusted. To me, most of the stuff that we don't see in business is, and Nils knows this, he and I have talked about it, is great people. I'm not even going to say business people, great people making ethical decisions about employees, about community, about all those things that are, and that never get covered because nobody's getting arrested. Nobody violated a law. It isn't man bites dog. It isn't dog bites man even. It's just doing the right thing. And that doesn't get covered. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's happening all the time. Some of the best people in the world are the people that I've met who run businesses and make ethical and honest and forthright decisions and don't make a big deal about it. That's just part of what they do.
What would you say to all those journalists who might say, okay, I'm now part of the Gen Z the new generation. How am I gonna start recording videos on social media if I'm part of an older generation? Like, how am I gonna show up and start just like doing this? I think this generational gap, it's something that some consider before jumping into a new adventure in journalism.
So were you saying, how does somebody who's an older journalist appeal to maybe this younger audience? I just want to qualify and clarify on the question. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, what's your advice for all those journalists who feel that they don't fit anymore in the new trends, in the new platforms, because they are just not part of the Gen Z who might have born with all these new media platforms?
My quick answer would be embrace it, and don't try to be, the hip boomer or the millennial who's trying to be a Gen Z. Like, even one generation down, huge difference. But be saying, hey, look, I'm ahead of you and here's what I see. And that is a value to every younger generation. They want to look forward into what's going, have we seen this before? Or what kinds of context? I will tell you, I work with Gen Zs all the time. That's my students. And they have way better relationships with their parents than my generation had with parents. And they're, substantially different, but they have more of a friendly and I would say advocating kind of relationship, both directions. And that says something about this generation that I don't think we hear very often, which is they're comfortable with older generations. They just put them in a different place, and they're not saying, oh, you're useless. They're saying you're useful to me in this context. And that context will change too. Look, they get older. That's what happens.
And then the other thing is, where can you add value? So there are certain things I can explain how, for example, certain economic aspects work. And the other thing is sometimes partner. So I know the 70-year-old, boomer. And
boomer.
He's actually partnering with a Gen Z influencer, and they're doing video clips together.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great content because he's really doing the translation work. Wow. And has at the same time that influencer understands what people really care about.
True.
Yeah.
And my last question, I would like to know in terms of timeline, when does a journalist have to step out of a certain platform and jump into another if they feel that they are not progressing in the one that they just choose to start working on this new branding or new project? When would you say, okay, let's stop in this platform, let's go somewhere else to see what happens?
You want to take that, Nils?
Well, put that way, obviously, platforms might be stagnating. I think the art is not to completely give up platform A or B in some cases, but just work on the frequency. And then especially take Instagram, Facebook, it's really easy to cross-share content. And you could also do the same thing in some cases. For example, if you have your own blog where you have your core content, then it's very easy to create different connections saying, hey, check out my latest blog, or this is my takeaway from South by Southwest. So I created, last time I was at South by Southwest, I created that post and I got more than 300 reactions on that post with my personal takeaways from South by Southwest. And that's a good example. That content worked on Facebook, it worked on LinkedIn. So I think the art is play with the frequency. And yeah, sometimes you can get people to follow you on a certain platform. I know so many people who stopped doing stuff on X and who were actually able to track their followers to another platform.
Yeah, I'd add to that is not just look at platforms as the decision. It's channels. Which ones are working? Go with the ones that are working. The ones that are not, stop. Don't say, oh, I just need to try harder. And maybe it's the wrong platform for the audience you're seeking. And just trust that and look at the data. I think the idea of giving up is probably tough for journalists. Maybe tougher as a category of personalities. But sometimes you have to. You give up and then you go back and you will have learned more by going through it and giving up. If you then go in and go, well, I'm just going to keep going, you're probably not going to have success in the way that you might measure it when you started. So I would say that can I give you an example of journalist entrepreneurs that we don't look at?
Yeah.
So Maria Ressa wins the Nobel Prize as a journalist. She's an entrepreneur who started her own journalism. She left CNN to start Rappler. And my contention is she would never have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize if she had stayed at CNN, because she would never have covered the kinds of things that she did and would never have stood for what it is she did when she went back to the Philippines and went full in as Rappler. So anybody who's saying, I want to make an impact, think of that. Another one is recently, it's a student of our school. I didn't have her in any of my classes because I had just started, is my new information, is Bianca Gragao. I think I'm saying her name. Do you know Bianca in Puerto Rico? She did the really very successful Injustice video that was done with Bad Bunny. And that is a completely new format of news. Like, is it news or is it a music video? Who cares? It brought the story to millions and millions of people to bring attention to an injustice in Puerto Rico. And to me, if you're looking to create impact, nobody's going to give you permission to do that at a major established media company. Those are the two I'll give as examples. If you want to make impact, get independent as fast as you can, and then go do this kind of work. And there's plenty of other examples. And it doesn't have to be financially successful in order to be successful. If I'm getting paid pretty well, I'm able to continue the work, I'm working with really good people, what number is that? To me, it's not that big a number. I'm not going to be recognized as the biggest successful media company, whatever that name is. I'm doing the work I want to do. It's meaningful to me. It's maybe satisfying on family levels, and it fits for now. And then you can move on later if it isn't paying enough or whatever. But it gives you latitude to make real deeper and longer term impact, I think, when you're independent.
Well, I definitely think that many of the journalists that will listen to this video will get a lot of keynotes about the possibilities we have. It's very easy to get immersed in this bubble of what we are working on every day, because the news cycle is fast. We are working all day long, and sometimes we just want to take a break. But as you mentioned, I think it's always good to give this extra mile and see what happens. Otherwise, we will never know, and we will probably remain behind all those who are actually trying new possibilities in the industry. So I wanna say thank you to both for sharing this hour with us talking about these possibilities, these opportunities that are outside, and very easy, just a matter of work on it and see what happens. So I want to say thank you again to Sean Branagan. He is the director for the Center of Digital Media Entrepreneurship at Syracuse University, and also he is a board member of the Association for Foreign Press Correspondents USA. Also, thank you, Nils Högsdal, professor of corporate finance and entrepreneurship at Stuttgart Media University. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Pleasure.
Thanks for doing the real work too
Thank
with
you.
coverage.
Thank you.
Good.
Nils, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. And yeah, I'm curious to see the reactions by journalists, because it's such an important profession, and it really is a profession. It's not a job.
Well, we're in crucial moments, so I think we need to find a way to make this become something people can trust more on.
Amen to that.